Okay, you silly boy. That's not a strange man with a taser. That's a chick with a big old cleaver. Boom, baby! Oh, frick, you're back? Where the heck have you been? I was beginning to think you were dead or something. Oh, sorry about that. Some stuff came up and I just got super busy with it. For a whole ass year? Also, hey, that's my hat! Well, it's mine now, guy. Anyways, details schmeetails. What's more important is that I'm back, and with a new thing to talk about. What is that? Alright, I'm pretty sure everyone's heard of Dynasty Warriors. Or at least know of the many spin-offs that have been made over the years. Berserk Band of the Hawk, One Piece Pirate Warriors, Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, and Persona 5 Strikers. No matter where you look, regardless of the platform, you're bound to see at least a handful of these games on a single console. Hell, there are even some plans for Star Wars and Mario, of all things, to get the Warriors treatment too. A Mario Warriors game. That'd be something, I'll tell you what.
So long, Bowser!
If you happen to live under a rock and don't know what Dynasty Warriors is, well, here's the rundown. Dynasty Warriors, or Shin Sangoku Musou in Japan, is a series of hack-and-slash video games developed by Omega Force, and first published by Koei, then later Koei Tecmo. Also known as the Musou, or Warriors series, the full title from the OG Japanese is literally translated as True Three Kingdoms Unrivaled. Essentially, these games play like a 3D beat-em-up. You beat up a bunch of dudes, then you run over to their boss, and then you win. The series is a spin-off of Koei's own turn-based strategy series, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which in itself is a loose adaptation of the Chinese historical text, The Records of the Three Kingdoms. However, Dynasty Warriors is an even more dramatized take on the history of the Three Kingdoms period in ancient China, that borrows more from the historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which also borrows from the Records of the Three Kingdoms. So basically, Dynasty Warriors is a spin-off of the spin-off to the spin-off? For those of you who are unaware what the Three Kingdoms were about, here's a brief history lesson. The Three Kingdoms was a period of time from 220 to about 280 CE in ancient China, where the land was divided amongst three different states that all fought for total supremacy. These three states were referred to as the kingdoms of Shaowei, Shuhan, and Eastern Wu, or Wei, Shu, and Wu for short. Lasting about 80 years, the Three Kingdoms has since been heavily immortalized and romanticized in several East Asian cultures in many different mediums, including operas, novels, films, TV, and of course, video games. Which brings us back to Dynasty Warriors. With the liberties it takes with its portrayal of, well, everything in the Three Kingdoms, it's become one of Koei Tecmo's most popular franchises, next to Dead or Alive, Ninja Gaiden, and Fatal Frame. Through its incredibly simple yet addictive hack-and-slash gameplay, whimsical depictions of actual historical people, and the dramatization of some historical events within the Three Kingdoms time period that may or may not have happened, the Dynasty Warriors series certainly has its fans. And that includes me. Dynasty Warriors is kinda near and dear to me. I grew up playing 3 a ton with my cousins when I was younger, but only really became a fan of the series when I got my hands on a copy of 5 at an EB Games when one of those still existed in the States. For me at least, there was something about the series that made it so amusing, relaxing to play at the same time. Being able to instantly pick up and cleave through thousands and thousands of goons as a very effeminate guy with Wolverine claws, or a small girl with an oversized tuning fork without too much thinking was almost therapeutic. I don't know. It comes as no surprise that with 9 main installments and a metric fuck ton of spin-offs and crossovers that the series has lived to see its 20th anniversary in the year 2020, now being its 21st in 2021. That's right, over 20 years of Musou, baby. From its first release in 2000 with Dynasty Warriors 2, up to today with the live-action film just hitting Netflix recently, as well as the upcoming Dynasty Warriors 9 Empires game. Wait. What did you just say? There's a live-action Dynasty Warriors movie? No, the thing before that. What did you say the first release was? Oh, the first release being Dynasty Warriors 2? What? What? Yeah, so you know how I mentioned that the Japanese title of Dynasty Warriors is Shin Sangoku Musou? Well, the first game with that title was actually Dynasty Warriors 2, which is why the games in the West have always been one number ahead of its Japanese release. Like Dynasty Warriors 9 over here being Shin Sangoku Musou 8 over there, and Dynasty Warriors 5 being Shin Sangoku Musou 4. And as such, the anniversary only takes into account the games that include the Shin Sangoku Musou title. So if the second Dynasty Warriors game in the West is the first Shin Sangoku Musou in Japan, then what the hell's the first Dynasty Warriors? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today. Hey everyone, I'm Bento, and this is Dynasty Warriors 1. Also developed by Omega Force and published by Koei, the first Dynasty Warriors game was released for the PlayStation 1 in 1997. However, unlike the rest of the series, the game is not a hack-and-slash game, but was instead a one-on-one fighting game, which explains why it's not included in the anniversary. Well, that and the fact that it was released in Japan under the title of just Sangoku Musou, Hold the Shin. At the time of its release, Dynasty Warriors signified a major departure from most of Koei's catalog, which mainly consisted of a bunch of strategy games before that, leaving some people intrigued on how this game would turn out from a team with no previous experience in the genre. So the game opens with an FMV sequence that showcases all the Dynasty Warriors doing some Dynasty Warrior-ing in glorious PS1 CG. Oh, that glorious PS1 CG. Alright, I'm just gonna say it. The opening doesn't look too hot. There's something about the way that the characters look and how there's a lack of textures on a lot of the models and so little of them on the backgrounds that make this intro sequence not that great. And this was around the time where a bunch of other fighting games on the system had opening FMV sequences, most of which looked not bland by comparison. This makes Tekken 1 look like James Cameron's Avatar. Okay, maybe not really. But seriously, even Tekken 1's opening looks better by comparison, and that came out almost 2 years beforehand. At least it was more dynamic than just "You spin me right round, baby, right round, like a record, baby, right round, round, round." If you leave the game sitting at the title screen for a bit after the intro is over, it goes into a demonstration mode with the CPU fighting around with each other, shows character usages and game statistics, and then another short CG sequence that transitions into the game's logo, before it loops back to the FMV opening sequence and starts the whole idle process over again. The game has quite a number of modes to choose from. You got 1P Battle as your standard arcade mode, Versus, which is, well, Versus mode. Team Battle, where you make a team of 3 different characters and fight another team until only one is left standing. Tournament Mode, an 8-character elimination mode where you fight 1v1 matches and the winner moves on, making their way to the finals to become the ultimate warrior of the dynasties. It can be played with some rando computers if you press the return/enter selection, or you can play with friends by picking characters before pressing the return/enter selection. Time Trial, which is pretty much 1P Battle but with the added challenge of finishing it in as little time as possible. Endurance, where you can pick a character and try to beat up as many people as you can with a single life bar. Practice Mode, where you can brush up on your skills. And finally Options, which is, well, options. Here you can adjust the game's overall configurations, like the computer's difficulty, number of rounds in a fight, and time limit in each round, as well as controller and memory card settings. All these modes are pretty much standard for your average fighting game at the time. Okay, so let's jump right into 1P Battle and see what the game really has in store for us. Right from the get-go, you're given quite a choice of 10 characters to pick from, with all of them being associated with the romance of the 3 kingdoms. Alright, I know I am definitely bound to say one of these names wrong because I'm a putz, so forgive me if I butcher any names throughout the video. But thanks to this manual here, I now know how to pronounce some of their names. Yeah, kinda. Wait, his name is Xiaoyun? Don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Xiaoyun.
I am Cao Cao.
The roster is evenly divided into three factions. The first trio of Xiaoyun, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei belong to the Shu Kingdom, and the second three of Xiaohudun, Dian Wei, and Shu Chu to the Wei Kingdom, and the last ones of Zhou Yu, Lu Shen, and Tai Shi to the Wu Kingdom. Oh, and Diao Chan is an other or whatever. If you've played the other games in the series, you'll notice that Wu seems to be the only kingdom that actually uses their correlated color in those games for their faction, red. All while Wei uses green, Shu is yellow, and other is blue. But in any case, the characters' portraits don't look that bad. For the most part, they look pretty alright. Anyways, let's pick Xiaoyun. He is the poster boy of the series after all. Once you're in the game, you'll notice a few things. First, you had the fighting game UI at the top as expected. You got your life bars in yellow and the character's name and little portraits on both sides of the screen, a green counter in between them keeping track of the time left in the round, and the number of rounds won being recorded underneath in the form of the yin and yang symbols. Pretty standard stuff. I do like how the names of the characters are color-coded with the kingdom they are affiliated with though, and you know when I said that the character portraits look good? Yeah, that may not really apply to their in-game models. Some of them do look okay, but others kinda look big and blocky looking, even for the time. Xiaoyun looks like a child wearing football shoulder pads, while Tai Shi is built like the friggin' Michelin Man. That is not to say that the animations are bad though, as most of them look pretty alright. Well, maybe except this guy's idle stance. He kinda looks like he needs to go to the bathroom and try not to shit himself. The majority of them are quite fluid, and the characters react accordingly to what's going on the screen. Coupled together with some sound effects that mesh rather well, such as the clanging of the weapons and the movement of the characters, the action during gameplay feels all the more impactful in a way. I'd also like to point out that it's pretty neat that there's actually a variety of weapons that could have been used during that time period, spread out amongst the characters. You got people wielding spears, crescent blades, swords, clubs, axes, metal rods, and maracas? Yeah, you know, the ancient Chinese weapons of war. Maracas. Jokes aside, it's still a pretty good, diverse set of weapons. It'd be kinda bland if everyone was using the same thing, probably with the cast being split between 50-50 of swords and spears only. Similarly, the stages in the game are decent enough. They are kind of like Tekken stages, where it's played on an infinitely scrolling field, but it's much more static. What I'm trying to say is that the stages' backgrounds are JPEGs, just like in those game stages, except that they don't dynamically zoom or pan in and out depending on both characters' positions on the battlefield. Though they do scroll left and right based on which way the characters are facing each other, so that's pretty neat. They're all based off of key locations in the Three Kingdoms lore, with each of the three starting characters of the single faction sharing a stage, alternating between the time of day for each. The Wei characters have Guandu, Shu has Changban, and Wu has Red Cliffs. And while she doesn't really belong to any of these factions, Diao-chan does have her own stage in the form of the Phoenix Palace. The same goes for the boss characters too, with their own respective stages. Overall, they're quite fitting. The music, on the other hand, not so much. To put it lightly, they're your average run-of-the-mill synth keyboard soundtrack from the mid-90s, which is both apt and unfitting at the same time. The music sounds like something out of Battle Arena Toshinden. It fits the era when this game came out, sure, but it doesn't feel like it belongs in the time period of ancient China in this game. Granted, the same can be said for the future installments of the series, what with the music in those games being full of hard rock and metal, but the big difference between the music in this game and the others being, well, the music in the other games is actually good. Dude, have you ever even heard Arena and Welcome to China? The later games featured music that fused rock and metal with traditional Chinese instruments to create amazing and memorable soundtracks. I mean, how many times can you remix your most popular boss man's theme and don't miss? The answer is every time. Say what you want about the gameplay of the future games, but literally any track from Dynasty Warriors 2 alone is leagues more memorable than all these forgettable tracks in Dynasty Warriors. That being said, I still kinda like Xiaoyun's theme in this, it's pretty okay. Speaking of gameplay, however...
You like that little transition though, huh?
As stated before, it plays like any of your early 3D fighting games from the late 90s. Specifically, it's somewhere between Battle Arena Toshinden and Soul Blade, leaning way more toward to the latter of the two. As far as basics go, you have your directional buttons for usual movement. You can move forwards, backwards, jump, and crouch. And you can double tap forward or backwards to do a dash in and away as well. For attacking, you have two buttons for two different variants. Square for horizontal and vertical slashes, and triangle for poking thrusts. These are further divided into highs, mids, and lows depending on the direction you press as you attack. Highs are done normally without inputting a direction, while lows are done by pressing down and an attack, and mids are done with down forward and attack. And if you get your opponent on a knockdown, you can try to follow up with a Virtua Fighter-esque jump attack with up and either thrust or slash. And of course you can defend against attacks by blocking, holding back or neutral to block mids and highs, and holding down or down back for lows. Additionally, if you're feeling a little frisky, you can style on your opponent and get them off balance with the other two defensive options that are specific against the two different attacks. You can parry slashes and get the other guy into a stunned state with X, while you can redirect thrusts and get behind them with circle. If the correct deflect is chosen, you will be able to follow up with an attack of your own after throwing them off. If you did the wrong one, however, you will be thrown off yourself, and you'll be open to being attacked some more. As for breaking these defenses, you can press both attack buttons, square and triangle, to do a grab. You can also sidestep to avoid some attacks by pressing both parry and redirect at the same time, or in this case circle and X, and you're given a number of recovery options to get up off the ground as well. You can mash X and another button of choice to get up faster, press square or triangle to do a high or low attack respectively, or circle to roll to the side while getting up. Now while I think it's cool and all that the game offers you a number of ways to defend yourself against attacks, I think it's just not that great. First of all, the sidestep does literal jack and shit. Or rather, it's inconsistent to say the least. I tried inputting different directions while doing it, up, down, left, right, but it only lets your character move to their left by like 2 centimeters. And it's so minute that you'd probably still get hit by the slash attack you were trying to avoid. Also, it's done by pressing 2 buttons, when in other games at the time would usually have it be mapped to a single button like the shoulder button, like in Battle Arena Toshinden, so it kinda makes it not worth the trouble trying to do it at all. Speaking of slashes, I actually couldn't tell you if there was any actual difference between slashes and thrusts. To be honest, they don't really differ in damage dealt or attack speed for each character from what I can tell. I believe the real reason that they only exist is for the 2 deflects that are dedicated to one attack or the other. Most of the time you can do the same punish that you can do from one of these deflects from just standard blocking, and sometimes their attacks still go through even though you did the correct deflect, so I kinda don't get it. But while there is no difference between the speed and strength of the different attacks for an individual character, there is a difference between characters overall. But that's pretty much the deal with any fighting game really. You got your heavy hitters, your agile combatants, and every other fighter in between. So yeah, slashes and thrusts don't really differ in damage or speed. It just really depends on the character or command you do. But they essentially serve the same function, chipping away at the other person's life, one string at a time. On that note, there are attacks that you can string together into a combo in this game, allowing you to keep up the pressure and deal more damage. Different characters use different buttons to combo into each other, consisting of thrust, slash, and the direction buttons. For example, Xiaoyun's main string from square is square, triangle, triangle, square, while Diao Chen's is just square, square, square. It's important to note that these combo strings are not necessarily true combos, as the first hit or 2 are natural and are guaranteed to hit, while the rest following it are not. Although the damage isn't that much, it's a goodish indicator to tell if your opponent was mashing or not when they get hit by the rest of the string or not. If they do manage to mash and attack you at the same time you attack them, you do get into a pretty sick-ass looking weapon clash, where the guy who mashes attack the most during the clash wins it and gets a free hit in. On the topic of damage though, it seems that the amount of damage you do is related to the distance between you and your opponent, but only for characters who carry pole arms. Xiaoyun, for example, wields a spear, and his slash does piss poor damage of 8 at a point blank range, while at mid range he does 12, and while he can do 16 from afar, he can do 20 at his maximum absolute tip. The same can be said for Guan Yu and Zhang Fei, the only other characters with a polearm for a weapon at the start. Every other weapon that the other characters have, such as swords, rods, and yes, even the maracas, do the exact same damage, regardless of how close or far you are from your opponent. Also, just like in other fighting games, each character has access to special moves done by a combination of various motions on the directional pad and attack buttons, which can do even more big damage than just your normal slashes and thrusts. They mostly consist of your standard double taps, quarter circles, half circles, and DP, or Shoryuken Z inputs. On top of that, you also have supers you can do called Musou attacks, which can be done with a quarter circle motion forward and either square and X for a slash variant, or triangle and circle for a thrust variant. These deal massive damage by themselves, and can do even more by extending itself if you have low health. However, you can only do them when your meter at the bottom of the screen fills up completely and turns the green orb next to it red. It fills up over time when you're doing attacks, dramatically increasing itself when you're on the offensive, but equally slows way down when you start playing defensively. Once the meter fills and the orb turns red, you now have access to your devastating Musou move. But you better do it fast because the meter starts to drain, forcing you to make your move as soon as possible or you just lose it all. Normally I wouldn't mind this. It refills itself, so it doesn't seem too far-fetched for it to remove itself too. The game's way of a give and take situation, I suppose. However, the self-draining super meter in this game is kinda dumb because not only does it lock you out of doing your super after a period of time once you've worked your way just to get it, but it also does not allow you to cancel into specials. Oh, that's right. The thing that's been in a majority of fighting games since probably forever is locked behind your super meter. If you don't have the meter, then you better know if your character has a move that launches, cause you won't be doing any combos, I'll tell you that much. For the most part through the game, you're just gonna have to rely on single strikes and raw command moves, as all the cool stuff like canceling normals into specials is just out of your reach. Though I can't be that mad about it, because to be completely fair, I think that's what Koei was trying to go for in this game. A fighting game that had the major focus on pokes and movement. Because if you could cancel specials without the need of having this meter system, games would be over in like 2 combos because of how insane some of the damage can get. Well, that's something I'd like to say with 100% confidence, but I'm gonna be real with you. The movement in this game is kinda ass. I'm not sure if it's my controller or if it's my PS3 running this disc, but trying to move in this game is like trying to walk with cement shoes. And you're also underwater. Movement feels a bit slow and stiff at the same time. Jumping seems a bit floaty, while footsies is furiously double tapping left and right, hoping to God that the game doesn't eat your inputs and just has you sit there and do nothing. This is actually more so the case with trying to input special commands than anything, as you might end up doing a different special move than the one you intended to do, or not even doing one at all and just throw out a random normal. But yeah, other than that, the game's not terrible. So after beating 7 of the other guys from the starting roster in 1P battle, you run into the sub-boss. You'll either fight Zhuge Liang if you're someone from the Wei Kingdom, or Cao Cao if you're literally anybody else. Zhuge Liang is an asshole in this game. He has a dinky little magic war fan that is kind of fast, can spin around his body either with or without holding it, and can fire an unblockable projectile that does a ton of damage and is a 50-50 between a high or low variant. Thank God I don't have to fight that guy. Though luckily for me, Cao Cao is also a filthy dirtbag. He may not have the magic horse hockey that the other guy has, but some of his sword attacks are stupid fast. He's got a mid-slash special that is practically unseeable, a 2-hitting low attack that knocks down, and an untechable command grab that doesn't even look like a grab. Like, come on dude, what even is that? Unfortunately, those two pale in comparison to the massive dickhead of a final boss that is ahead of them. It is the one, the only, the guy that every single NPC in the later games tell you to not pursue, Lu Bu. This guy is the God King among men in the Warriors franchise, and this game is no exception. Wielding a halberd, he can deal tons of damage, is quick as hell, has a lot of range, and he's got strings for days. He even has a move that lunges him forward with an initial hit that he can turn into a throw for a kabillion damage on impact, and moves with built-in deflect properties that can throw you off first and then just smacks the shit out of you for even thinking about trying him. He's got it all, baby. But if there's one thing Lu Bu forgets, it's that he forgets to watch his toes. So after beating Lu Bu, you are rewarded with a cutscene of your character, and these are just, well, I mean, sure they mean something, but more than half the time, most of them don't really make any fucking sense to me. Like this guy getting pissed drunk at his own home, or this guy recreating the Kensei Sacred Fist opening sequence, or this guy tanking boulders to the forehead, or whatever's going on in here. Ugh. Only a few of them have a semblance of sense, which are tied to what is said to have happened to these people in real life, historically or mythically. Holy shit, they actually rendered him eating his fucking eyeball. Eee! Also, upon completion of 1P battle, you can unlock the boss characters. You get Zhuge Liang and Cao Cao by beating it as all three of the available characters from their respective factions. Xiaoyun, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei for Zhuge Liang, and Xiahou Dun, Dian Wei, and Xu Chu for Cao Cao. And then you unlock Lu Bu by beating the game with everyone else, including the two sub-bosses you just unlocked. On top of that, there are 3 more characters you can only get by inputting codes. One extra character for the Wu clan, Sun Shangshang, can be unlocked with a code as soon as you get to the title screen. You can unlock Nobunaga Oda, arguably the most infamous warlord of all of Japan, by beating the game first with Lu Bu, and then input a code at the title screen. And then if you beat the game again with Nobunaga and do a code afterward, you can unlock whoever the hell this is. Wait, what? That's supposed to be Tokichiro? AKA Hideyoshi Toyotomi? Damn, look how they massacred my boy. They turned him into a goddamn Funko Pop. And he talks like he just inhaled 20 gallons of helium. Even his stage music sounds like a comedy routine. And his sound effects are just someone making them with their mouth. That's pretty funny actually. Unlike the other characters you unlock who have their own unique style, these code characters do not, and are just literal clones. Sun Shang-sang is just Zhou Yu, Nobunaga is Lu Bu, and Tokichi is friggin' Cao Cao for some reason. And as such, they do not have endings when you beat 1P battle with them. So yeah. Overall, Dynasty Warriors 1 is a fighting game. Yeah. What more can I say other than a weapons-based 3D fighter? There's not really many of them around, especially during the time it was released. It's not as good as Soul Blade, but it's not as memorable, for better or worse, than Battle Arena Toshinden. It's grossly overshadowed by its own sequels that are not even in the same genre. And I'm gonna be honest with you all, it's not that great. But it's not bad either, don't get me wrong. It does have some cool, interesting ideas, like the game's story and setting, as well as the Musou meter system, and the 2 different types of deflects for the 2 different types of attacks. But it's kind of bogged down by the character's stiff movement and the game just eating inputs, especially when you're trying to do specials. I think this game is between pretty good and meh. Meh. Honestly, if Koei Tecmo decides to go back and do a true Dynasty Warriors 1 sequel, a new Warriors fighting game, I think they do a pretty darn good job, what with Koei's relatively new experience they've gained with the later titles, and Tecmo's knowledge of the 3D fighter from the Dead or Alive series. I mean, they did have What's-Her-Face from Samurai Warriors 4 show up in DOA 5 last round, and she turned out really well. They also did a little stint in Warriors Rochi 3 with a versus mode, and that was kinda... but hey, at least the idea is still out there for them. All in all, Dynasty Warriors 1 is It's alright. Anyways, I want to thank you all for watching. Sorry about the wait between this video and the last. It was kind of a little bit longer than I wanted initially. Anyways, as per usual, I have no idea what the heck the next video is going to be about, but until the next one, peace. No. Huh? No, you're just not gonna bamf out of here and show up 52 weeks later yet again, you shit ass. It's not like I do it on purpose. Shut up! Shut up and sit the hell down! But I am sitting. Now you said you had no idea what your next video was gonna be about, right? Yes? Well, amigo, do I have something for you? The PS Classic. Just turn it on. Okay. Oh my. So until next time, boys and girls, peace.